On to the next step of our suspension rebuild, and it's the shocks and springs we're on to. So I've decided to go for Bilstein B8 dampers, front and rear, and then with Intrax lowering springs. We've got new dust boots for the front, top pads, lower pads, the bearings, top washers, and then a set of top mounts. I couldn't get OE Saxall M4. It seems that ZF no longer manufacture them, so the only option was a dealer, and they were eye-wateringly expensive. So I've gone with FAG ones. They make all the bearings for BM, so it's a good quality make, so I'm going to give those a go. And then for the back, I've got a pair of top mounts, lower spring pads, because the upper spring pad is built into the top mount. These cups basically sit on the top of the bump stops, and they're on worldwide back order at the minute, so this is a second-hand pair that I've just tarted up a bit. Got some washers for the top, and then the bump stops, they're M5 bump stops. So the difference between an M5 bump stop and a 6-cylinder bump stop is like that, and the reasoning is a 6-cylinder has a plastic boot that covers the body, but the M5 doesn't have one for some reason. Does seem a bit strange not to protect the damper. But what I've done is I've cut an inch off the bottom of them. There's reports of, if you don't do that, that the suspension can hit the bump stops too early and give strange handling characteristics. So yeah, I've done that on both of them readiness. So what I'll make a start on is probably the rear. They're a bit easier. I'm going to be using the press. I know it's a bit weird not using a spring compressor, but yeah, this is just, I find this a lot quicker and easier. So we'll get cracking and have a look at it now. So what we're going to start with is we've got the shock on there, and then just the lower cup, and we've got a new spring pad, the spring, and then just rotate it round till it's at the end, basically like that. And then we've got a bump stop, a cup, and then we've got our top mount. There's cutouts in the top mount which line up where the back of the pins are, so you want to just make sure that that is sitting correctly, otherwise it will sit higher on one side. And then drop him on the top, basically spring up to the end of the pad there. So for the top mount positioning, what you want to make sure is you've got sort of the pin on the damper facing you, and then you want to make sure that you've got a bolt that goes into the body directly opposite it there, and that means you've got the alignment right to the chassis when you come to fit it to the car, because otherwise you have to try and twist it. Nice and easy on the Bilsteins, it's just a case of rotating it round because it spins on the lower cup. So that's about parallel, and then from our lower ball joint tool, I use that because you've got the open window there, and then what we can do is just set that on there. You can push it sort of down a bit so it's centered everything, and then I'll just go and set that there. And centralise everything, and then the pressure that you're putting on there is very minimal. You'll be able to see that I can just do it by hand. Okay, that's just started to compress the damper now. So there we've got the little window there, we can see in there. So I've had to reuse these top washers off a set of old shocks because when I come to order them they were no longer available. But just final checks, we're on the stopper there, and then up the top just wants rotating around a little bit more, so I'll rotate that round. Okay, so I just released it, or rotated it round to close the gap up that was between the end of the spring and the pad. So that's sorted now. Check my orientation pin to pin, and yeah, can just send him home again. So the beauty of having the little window, you can get your you just use a ratchet spanner. Okay, it's just starting to turn now, so get that there, and then what we can do with a 6mm spanner, just hold the flat. Right, so that's one rear done. Yeah, I just find it easy with the press, it just does it, and yeah, no need for spring compressors or anything like that, just job done. So I'll get on with the fronts now. Okay, so now onto the front dampers. They're not perfectly flat, so I've got a plate just there supporting that side. First go on, lower spring pad. And we can go with our spring. So the spring has got a funny sort of kink in it there, which matches up with this here. It's just a case of positioning it where it sits around the shape well. Roughly about an inch back from that step. You'd think it'd be round there against the stop, but no, it's about an inch back from there. I've looked at a set of the standard M5 dampers, and that's where it's set, so that's where I'm going to set it. And then after that we can go with our top pad and then the bellows to protect the shock. There's no bump stop required on the fronts because they have internal bump stops, the rears don't. So I can just feed that over. So that'll go like that. Then we need the supporting plate. I don't know why BM stick stickers. Pay like £20 for that washer and they go and ruin it with a sticker. So drop that down. And then we've got the new bearing. So that's what allows the top mount to turn when you obviously turn the steering wheel. And then that's got little ribs onto there and little ribs into the rubber. Orientation doesn't matter too much on that. So that's in there. You can see the washer that we just fitted drop down. It sits on a shoulder on the shock. And then it's just a case of popping the top mount in. Your positioning on the top pad doesn't matter, it's perfectly round. It's perfectly round, so it doesn't make a difference. Oh. And then what we'll need is the washer, which you can still get them. I reckon I won't even need the press for this. I think I'll just be able to press it enough to. Okay, so that's the nut started on there. I'll just be able to push it by hand. and then after that it's just a case of tightening it up. A 22mm, so a bit of an oddball size. There's an Allen key in the centre, so you can hold the middle of the damper and then just tighten the nut onto it. There we go, that's one front done. I'll get the other one built up now as well, same as that, really simple, easier than the rears. That's all 4 shocks and springs assembled now and ready to go on the car. So that's another job ticked off the list, so getting all the piece parts together and then just hopefully chuck it all on in one go. That's the plan anyway, so we'll move on to the next bit.